Evil doesn't always announce itself with a scream, it creeps in silently, under cover of night, and leaves a deep wound that never heals. In the early hours of November 13, 2022, 4 young lives were snuffed out in this house, in Idaho, a beautiful small town that hadn't seen a murder in 7 years. Imagine the level of peace and quiet in that place. Yet Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, University of Idaho students with dreams as big as the Idaho sky, were stabbed to death in the most gruesome way possible on their beds. The killer left behind a knife sheath, a white Hyundai Elantra caught on camera, and a surviving roommate frozen in terror. Nearly 3 years later, in 2025, the man accused of this slaughter, Bryan Kohberger, faces trial. But as the evidence piles up and the defense fights back, one question haunts us all: who is Bryan Kohberger, and why did Moscow's peace die with those 4 students? This is no ordinary crime story. It's a twisted puzzle and a dark web of DNA, digital footprints, and a community's shattered trust. Sit back, buckle up and watch the tale of a criminology student turned suspect, a town scarred forever, and a trial that could end in death, for Kohberger, or for justice itself. Welcome to the untold story of the Idaho 4. November 12, 2022, was a typical Saturday night in Moscow, a rural college town of 26,000 nestled near the Washington border. In case you're not familiar, Moscow is a tight-knit community that's big on warmth and hospitality. Home to the University of Idaho, this picturesque town is surrounded by rolling hills, scenic farmland, and the stunning Palouse region. From outdoor adventures to cultural attractions, Moscow is a hidden gem that was always peaceful until that incident. So, that night in November, Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves, both 21 and lifelong best friends, hit the corner club bar downtown, then grabbed late-night grub at a food truck like normal college kids. In similar fashion, Xana Kernodle, 20, and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin, also 20, spent the evening at Sigma Chi's party on campus dancing the night away. By 1:45 a.m. all 4 were back at 1122 King Road, a rental house just steps from the University of Idaho. 2 other roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, were home too, asleep on the first floor. No one knew that night would be their last together. It was a typical suburban night, until the darkness was shattered by a brutal and calculated attack. Police say it began around 4 a.m. when a large, fixed-blade knife, which was never recovered, tore through the house with deadly precision. The second floor was where the first victims were found, Xana and Ethan, lying lifeless in her bed, surrounded by a pool of blood that seemed to scream of the horror that had unfolded. Upstairs, the scene was just as grim. Madison and Kaylee lay huddled together in Maddie's room, their young lives brutally cut short. The presence of defensive wounds on some of the victims suggested a desperate fight for survival, but the killer was relentless, driven by a twisted motive that would later be revealed. And then, there was silence. Except for one survivor's account, a crucial testimony that would crack the case wide open and set investigators on the trail of a killer. The question was, who was behind this heinous crime, and what drove them to commit such atrocities? Dylan Mortensen, one of the 2 surviving roommates, woke to noises she later described as crying from Xana's room. It was just after 4 a.m. Peering out of her bedroom on the first floor, she heard a male voice say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Then, footsteps. At 4:17 a.m. She cracked her door and saw him, a man, over 5'10", athletic build, wearing a black mask with cutouts for eyes and mouth. He didn't see her, or didn't care. He walked past, out the sliding glass door, and into the night. Dylan locked her door, paralyzed by fear, and didn't call 911 until nearly 8 hours later, at 11:58 a.m. When police arrived at the scene, they were met with a horrifying bloodbath. 4 students lay lifeless, their bodies bearing the brutal marks of a combat-style knife. The air was heavy with the scent of blood, and the silence was oppressive, interrupted occasionally only by the sound of sirens and the murmur of investigators. The scene was chaotic, yet oddly contained. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of ransacking or disarray. It was as if the killer had moved with carefully calculated precision, leaving behind only the faintest whispers of their presence. But there was one anomaly that caught the investigators' attention: a tan leather knife sheath on Madison's bed, embossed with the distinctive logo of K-Bar, a military-grade brand known for its rugged reliability. It was a jarring mistake, a thread of carelessness that threatened to unravel the killer's carefully constructed identity. Early tests revealed DNA from an unknown male on the sheath's snap, a tantalizing clue that hinted at the killer's presence. As the investigation unfolded, the knife sheath became a focal point, a symbol of the killer's arrogance and a potential key to their undoing. It was a small mistake, but one that would ultimately prove to be a crucial misstep in the killer's carefully laid plans. Chief James Fry stood at the forefront of a town in turmoil, its sense of security shattered by its first homicide since 2015. The weight of the community's anxiety was palpable as he addressed the media on November 16. "We do not have a suspect at this time," he cautioned, his tone measured and reassuring. Yet, beneath the calm exterior, a sense of urgency drove the investigation forward. Fry urged the public to report anything unusual, no matter how insignificant it may seem. Behind the scenes, investigators pored over tons of security footage, which provided a puzzle of grainy clips from Ring cameras and local businesses looking for any evidence of the killer. The task was difficult and felt a needle in a haystack, but one clip caught their attention: a white Hyundai Elantra, its presence both fleeting and ominous, circling King Road between 3:29 and 4:20 a.m. The footage, captured on a camera near a gas station, revealed a crucial detail: the car had no front license plate, a peculiarity that stood out in Idaho, where front plates were the norm. This ghost, a car without a face, became the investigators' focus, a tantalizing lead in an otherwise cryptic case. The investigation exploded. 40 FBI agents, 60 state police, and local cops combed Moscow. They had DNA, a car, and a witness, but no name. Thanksgiving came and went, the students' funerals packed with grief, yet the killer remained free. The town locked its doors, students fled campus, and rumors swirled: was it a student? A drifter? Someone they knew? The answer was closer than anyone imagined. 9 days after the murders, a white Hyundai Elantra sat parked at an apartment complex in Pullman, Washington. It belonged to Brian Kohberger, a 28-year-old PhD student in criminology at WSU. On December 7, Moscow police released their Elantra lead to the public, and tips flooded in. A campus officer recognized the car, Kohberger's car. By mid-December, investigators had zeroed in on him, but they needed more than a hunch. Kohberger wasn't just a student, he was studying killers, profiling, forensics, the psychology of crime. Could he have turned theory into practice? Born in 1994 in Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains, Brian Kohberger's early life was marked by contrasts. He struggled to fit in during his high school years, earning the reputation as a loner and facing bullying due to his weight. However, this terrible experience fueled his determination, and he underwent a transformation, becoming a fitness enthusiast. Kohberger's academic prowess eventually led him to DeSales University, where he earned a master's degree in criminal justice. It was during this time that he posed a haunting question to an ex-FBI agent on social media: how do you get inside a killer's mind? This inquiry hinted at a fascination with the darker aspects of human nature. In 2022, Kohberger relocated to the West Coast to pursue his doctorate, adopting a solitary lifestyle. His online presence was marked by the posting of unusual surveys, probing the emotional dynamics of criminal behavior. Kohberger was known for his intelligence and reserved nature, and was often described as quiet, brilliant, maybe too brilliant. With Kohberger's Elantra spotted, the police had a name. Now, they had to make sure it wasn't the wrong name. Police traced its license plate, Pennsylvania tags swapped for Washington ones post-murder, and matched its movements to the murder window. Cell phone pings placed Kohberger's phone in Moscow 12 times before November 13, often late at night near King Road. On the murder night, his phone went dark from 2:47 a.m. to 4:48 a.m., a blackout covering the crime. Then, the DNA, a familial match from the sheath linked to trash recovered outside his parents' Pennsylvania home on December 27. It was 99.9998% certain, Kohberger's skin cells were on that sheath. After driving cross-country with his father for Christmas, Kohberger was arrested in a pre-dawn raid. He'd been back in Pennsylvania just 2 weeks, acting normal, eating dinner, watching TV, while Moscow mourned. Police found no murder weapon, but his apartment yielded a K-bar knife catalog and phone records showing he'd turned off his device strategically. On January 5, 2023, he was extradited to Idaho, charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary. The quiet student was now the prime suspect in a quadruple homicide that gripped the nation. The knife sheath was the prosecution's golden ticket. Found under Madison Mogen's body, it bore a single-source DNA profile, male, unknown at first, but traced through genealogy databases to Brian Kohberger. Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson called it the strongest link. Lab tests confirmed Kohberger's touched DNA on the snap, likely left when he sheathed the blade post-attack. The K-bar logo hinted at a Marine Corps-style combat knife, 7 inches long, capable of the deep, lethal wounds described in the autopsies. Then there was the digital trail. Kohberger's phone records showed a pattern, 12 late-night trips near the victim's house from August to November 2022, as if scouting. On November 13, his phone pinged south of Moscow at 4:48 a.m. heading back to Pullman after the killings. Dashcam audio from a nearby home caught a distant thud and a dog barking, Sheba, the victim's pet, around 4:17 a.m. aligning with Dylan Mortensen's timeline. The white Elantra sealed it, seen on 4 cameras circling the block, its driver's side window reflecting a streetlight in eerie stillness. After his arrest, Kohberger said little. He waived his Miranda rights but offered no confession, just a calm, "I didn't do anything." Yet small details piled up. A WSU classmate recalled him asking about the murders in class, fishing for updates before his arrest. His Hyundai had fresh mud on its tires when seized, suggesting a rural detour, perhaps to ditch the knife, still missing. And in his apartment, police found a collection of true crime books, one dog-eared on home invasions. Coincidence, or a blueprint? By January 2023, the case seemed airtight. Prosecutor Bill Thompson laid it out, DNA on the sheath, the Elantra's movements, Dylan's description of a tall, athletic man, and Kohberger's phone blackouts. The motive? Unclear. No ties linked Kohberger to the victims, no social media follows, no classes together. Some speculated rage, an incel grudge against happy college kids, or a criminologist testing his own theories. Others saw a random thrill kill. Whatever drove him, the state sought death, filing intent to execute in June 2023. Idaho's death penalty loomed large. Moscow demanded answers, but Kohberger's silence left a void. The evidence spoke, yet the why remained a ghost in the room. Enter Ann Taylor, Brian Kohberger's lead defense attorney, a seasoned public defender with a reputation for tenacity. By spring 2023, she'd built a team to save him from lethal injection. Their strategy? Poke holes in the prosecution's slam dunk. Taylor didn't deny the horror of the murders, but she insisted the state had the wrong man. As pre-trial hearings loomed in 2025, her counterpunches began to land, turning a tidy case into a battlefield of doubt. First, the alibi. Brian Kohberger's alibi for the early morning hours of November 13 was a crucial aspect of his defense. According to Kohberger, he had spent the evening driving aimlessly, lost in thought as he stargazed, a habit he had mentioned to friends on several occasions. In an effort to fully immerse himself in the experience, Kohberger claimed to have turned off his phone, seeking to avoid any distractions. The defense team, led by attorney Taylor, seized upon a cell tower ping at 4:48 a.m. near Wawawai Park, a rural area approximately 10 miles from Moscow, as evidence supporting Kohberger's alibi. Taylor argued that this ping indicated Kohberger's location at the time, making it impossible for him to have returned to King Road, where the murders took place, in time to commit the crimes. While no eyewitness came forward to place Kohberger at Wawawai Park, conversely, there was no camera footage or other evidence to definitively disprove his presence in the area either. Taylor sought to capitalize on this ambiguity, portraying Kohberger as a nocturnal individual with a penchant for solitary nighttime drives, rather than a calculating killer. "He's a night owl," Taylor emphasized, "not a killer." Next, the DNA. The sheath sample was pristine, too pristine, the defense claimed. How could Kohberger leave his DNA there but nowhere else in a bloody, chaotic scene? They hired geneticist Greg Hampikian, who questioned the genealogy match, suggesting contamination or a distant relative. "One skin cell doesn't convict," he testified in a 2024 hearing. The Elantra? Common car, wrong driver, they said, grainy footage couldn't ID Kohberger. Taylor demanded access to the FBI's full DNA database methods, sparking a legal tug-of-war. Taylor also demanded that the DNA evidence was collected without permission. Dylan Mortenson's account became a flashpoint. She'd waited 8 hours to call 911, initially saying she'd heard party noises, a delay the defense called suspicious. Was her memory reliable under trauma? Her description, tall, athletic, male, fit thousands, not just Kohberger. "She saw a shadow, not my client," Taylor told the court in June 2025, pushing to suppress her testimony as vague. The prosecution fired back. Her story matched the evidence, trauma explained the delay. In February 2025, Idaho 4th District Judge Stephen Hippler ruled that DNA evidence linking Brian Kohberger to the crime scene can be used in his trial. Contrary to what the defense were asserting, he maintained that the DNA technique used by law enforcement to identify Brian Kohberger as the murder suspect was fair and admissible at trial. This decision is a major blow to Kohberger's defense team, who had argued that the DNA was collected without a warrant and therefore should be excluded from the trial. However, the judge disagreed, stating that there is no reasonable expectation of privacy for evidence collected at a crime scene. The DNA evidence in question was found on a knife sheath at the residence where the 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were fatally stabbed in November 2022. Investigators used family tree databases and DNA collected from trash at Kohberger's family home to link him to the crime scene. This evidence, combined with cell phone data and security footage, forms a significant part of the prosecution's case against Kohberger. Kohberger's trial is scheduled to begin in August, with prosecutors seeking the death penalty if he is convicted. The case has drawn widespread attention and sparked outrage in the community, with the victims' families and friends eagerly awaiting justice. The Goncalves family released a statement after the ruling, expressing their gratitude for the court's decision and their hope that justice will be served. As summer 2025 nears, the trial date looms. August 4th, pre-trial hearings have exposed cracks, suppressed video evidence, contested phone data, and a gag order fraying under media pressure. Taylor's team files motion after motion, delaying proceedings but galvanizing Kohberger's small online fanbase, who saw a railroaded man. In Moscow, the scars deepened, faith in justice waned as the case grew murkier. Moscow, Idaho, a quaint college town of 26,000 residents, was left reeling in the aftermath of the brutal murders. By 2025, the community was still grappling with the trauma, its collective psyche scarred by the tragedy. The town's very fabric seemed to have been torn apart, leaving behind a gaping wound that refused to heal. The University of Idaho, once a thriving hub of academic and social activity, felt the ripple effects of the murders. Enrollment plummeted by 20% as anxious parents withdrew their children, fearful that the killer might still be lurking in the shadows. The campus, once bustling with students, took on a deserted air, its empty corridors and classrooms a haunting reminder of the lives lost. The local businesses, which had long relied on the university's student population, began to shut down one by one. King Road, once a vibrant thoroughfare lined with shops and restaurants, transformed into a ghost street, its storefronts empty and silent. The very heart of the town seemed to have been extinguished, leaving behind a sense of desolation and despair. The house at 1122 King Road, where the murders had taken place, stood as a grim monument to the tragedy, a constant reminder of the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. In February 2025, at the request of the victims' families, bulldozers finally razed the house to the ground, erasing the physical structure that had become synonymous with the tragedy. Yet, even as the house was reduced to rubble, the pain and trauma it represented could not be so easily erased. The wounds of Moscow would take far longer to heal. It's like we're stuck. You can't walk past that spot without feeling it, their screams, the blood. We want justice, but this trial? It's tearing us apart again. Sarah's words echoed a town divided. Some clung to Koberger's guilt, desperate for closure. Others whispered doubts, what if he's not the guy? The gag order, imposed in 2023 by Judge Megan Marshall, fueled rumors. Leaks slipped through anyway, alleged occult ties, a second suspect, even victim-blaming theories tied to Kaylee's ex-boyfriend. None panned out, but they festered online, on Reddit and X, where true crime sleuths dissected every detail. The victims' families bore the deepest wounds. Kaylee's mom, Christy Goncalves, spoke publicly in 2024, voice-breaking, "She was my baby, and he took her." Madison's dad, Ben Mogan, tattooed her name on his arm, vowing to watch Koberger fry. Xana's family stayed quieter, but her dad's tears at a 2025 vigil said enough. Ethan's parents, Stacy and Jim Chapin, channeled grief into a foundation, yet privately raged at delays. The trial wasn't just justice, it was survival. Till today, Moscow waits, bleeding still, for a trial to heal, or destroy, what remained. The Idaho case is still ongoing, and yet again, we're reminded that justice may be slow, but it's never forgotten. The tireless efforts of investigators, the bravery of witnesses, and the perseverance of families will always bring closure to those affected. We hope this true crime story has shed light on the complexities of this case and the importance of seeking truth. If you've been impacted by this story, we encourage you to share your thoughts and reflections with us. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you want to stay up to date on more intriguing true crime stories, be sure to subscribe to our channel for fresh crime stories and updates. Like this video and share to show your support. Comment below with your thoughts and questions. Together, let's continue to seek justice and uncover the truth. Until next time.